Individual rights versus force, Ari Armstrong.
Imagine that every day of your life, you are forced to wake up, go out in the fields, and engage in brutal, back-breaking physical labor. And that all of your sweat, blood, tears, all the fruits of your labor go to someone else, your master. And that anything you get in return, food, clothing, shelter, is solely at the mercy of that master. And if you do anything to annoy your master, or if you seek to escape, you may be brutally beaten. Now imagine your profound joy if you were able to escape this brutal system of oppression. You can imagine, or you can consider the story of Frederick Douglass, who did just that, escape slavery. He tells the story of his first job upon escaping from slavery. It was a dirty, difficult, physically difficult, challenging job of loading a sloop, a type of ship, with oil. You can imagine how hard that would be, and he'd never done this before. But he says that he finally found work that he could do for his own purposes, and that he could keep the fruits of his labor. And there was no master. His master was named Hugh. So he said, there's no master Hugh watching over me, ready to take the fruits of my labor as soon as I earn it. So what is the fundamental principle animating Frederick Douglass's escape from slavery? It is the principle of individual rights. This idea that every individual properly lives his own life to his own purposes. And that he's able to keep the fruits of his labor and pursue the values that are important to him, rather than serve some master. But I'd like us to consider some of the logical implications of this idea of individual rights. Consider, as Robert Nozick would suggest, what might happen if Master Hugh decided to make some concessions. What if, instead of escaping, Frederick Douglass was not able to escape, and Master Hugh called him into his office or his home and said, look, Frederick, I understand there's some moral issue with slavery, I don't quite get it, but you seem to be upset about being a slave. And so I'm willing to make some concessions, because I understand that there's some issues we need to work out. So what I'm willing to do is give you 1 day a week off. 1 day. You can do whatever you want. You can work another job, go out and party, go to a dance, take a hike around the lake, do whatever you want that 1 day. But the next morning, you have to be back here bright and early to work for me and do what I want to do, and what I need you to do, and I will take the fruits of your labor the rest of the 6 days of the week. So what might you say to Master Hugh if he made this kind of argument? We would say, look, we grant that this would marginally improve the quality of Frederick's life. At least he gets 1 day to do something that he wants to do. But he's still fundamentally a slave. He's a slave 6 days a week. Moreover, even this 7th day a week is not truly his. This is merely a privilege that can be revoked at your mercy. So even this day, he has this slavery hanging over him. So he's never truly a free man. Ah, Master Hugh says, you're trying to play hardball. So, okay, I'll give you 2 days a week off. Right? Because that's so much better. Or if he's really feeling generous, 3 or even 4 days. Now you get most of the week to yourself. But our response would be similar. Yes, we grant that this is marginally improving their life, but it's still fundamentally a system of oppression. Now at this point, some of my clever critics are going to object, and they're going to say, I can see where you're going. You're trying to equate taxation with slavery. But that's totally illegitimate, because taxation takes only a small portion of your income. And moreover, it's a democratic process. Right? You get buy-in. You get to vote on this system, just like everybody else. But my response would be, look, I'm not talking about the magnitude here. I'm not talking about whether you're working 3 days or 7 for someone else against your wishes. And I'm not talking about how you're implementing this, whether you're putting someone in chains and dragging them across the ocean in a boat, or whether the majority is voting in to confiscate the wealth from the minority on threat of throwing them in prison. Instead, I'm talking about the basic underlying principle. So we've seen the underlying principle for Frederick Douglass, what's animating his struggle to escape slavery, which is individual rights. What's animating Master Hugh? Well, consider what else Master Hugh might say if he's really feeling the pangs of the guilty conscience of being a slave. He might say, Ah, I see what you're after. You're after money. That's what everyone's motivated by, is money. So I'll tell you what, Frederick, I'll give you a 10% cut of anything you earn from me. 10%, right? That's pretty good. Plus, you still get your day off, right? So this is much better. Well, what about 20% or 30%? Or he might say, well, I see what you want. You want the freedom to choose. Well, I got choice. I have the fields, or you can repair my farmyard equipment, the plows and such. Or you can tend to the horses over here. That's a choice. I'll tell you what, Master Jones down the street, he has this great blacksmithing business. I'll even trade your labor with one of his slaves, and you can learn how to be a blacksmith. You have all kinds of choices. Are we persuaded by Master Hugh's argument? I think not, because the fundamental principle behind his arguments is that he is properly entailed to use force to confiscate the fruits of the labor of Frederick. Whether he has some choices, whether it's 3 days a week or 7, he still is under this compulsion of force. So here we have two completely opposite principles. The principle of individual rights, which is motivating this escape from slavery and abolition of slavery, and the principle of force, which we can see in the Master Hugh in any of his variants. Now I want to clarify a couple of possible misconceptions here. I'm not talking about voluntary charity here, right? Under individual rights, you have the right to give as much money as you want to whomever you please, as long as it's the fruits of your labor, and you're not giving somebody else's money away. And I'm not talking about your contractual obligations, right? If someone repairs your house, you owe them the money that you promised to give them for repairing the house. And at that point, it's not, you're trading the fruits of labor, but it's by mutual consent. So it's not a matter of coercion or force that I'm now paying you for these repairs in the house. Or if you bring a child into this world, you are making an agreement to do this. So ultimately, if we take this principle of individual rights seriously, we're going to, I think, come to agree with Howard Rourke, a person from fiction, who said, I came here to say that I recognize no right of anyone to 1 minute of my life. Thank you.